Hi everyone, welcome back to Java 1 for All. In this video, we're going to talk about a feature that was introduced on Java 14 as a preview. On Java 15, it was preview 2, and then it was effectively introduced in the language from Java 16. It's a new type of class called record class. Let's create them inside the JUnit package here inside domain. Right click, new, and then just type manga, and instead of class we are going to create here a record. So record is a special type of class that basically will make everything immutable. We know a little bit how to work with lombok, and we know that the at value will basically do the same, not the same, but basically will make your class immutable. But when we have record, basically you are replacing the entire lombok with just one line, and this is done natively from the Java itself. Let's add two attributes here. This is one of the key differences. Basically, the constructor now, if you are familiar with Kotlin, it's pretty similar to what data classes are there. So basically, the constructor now is here in the class declaration. And as you can see, we don't have class. It's public record and then the name you want, and followed by the attributes. So we are going to add two attributes, and then we are going to compile. Control F9, and after pressing Control F9, okay, so looks like IntelliJ didn't update the compiler. Come here to File, Settings, search for Build and Execution, Java Compiler, and I'm not sure why this is still on 15 because we updated to 16. Just update this to 16, apply, okay, and then you press Control F9 again. And now the target folder that was generated, just go there and we are going to get the domain package, and I'm going to show you in the terminal. Just drag and drop this one here, Java P, kind of I'm trying to decompile for the terminal, manga.class. So basically this is the record. As you can see, it's final. Now it's extending java.lang.record. The constructor from manga, it's with both attributes we declared here. We have toString, hash code, equals, and then we have accessors for name and episode. As you can see, this is not setter. This is kind of getter, but without the name get. So basically we can only get the data back. So once you create the object, it's not possible for you to change that object. You have to create a new one. So let's see how we can test this. Let's create a test, since now we already know how to work with JUnit. And the first thing that we are going to test is to make sure, for example, the accessors, they are working. So the first method, well, let's first set up before each public void set up, and then let's create two mangas, because since we have equals and hash code, we want to test both of them. So manga1 package zzk, and then Control D, manga2. So before each one of the tests, manga1, new manga, give a name, Kimetsu no Yaiba, number of episodes 24, and then the manga2 will be exactly the same. So the first test will be public void accessors return data when initialized. Assertions, assert equals. So I'm expecting the name to be this one when I call manga1 dot name, and the number of episodes 24 when I call manga1 dot episodes. So Control Shift F10, and the accessors are working. So basically it proves that we are able to retrieve the data. Now let's make sure the equals is also working. So equals return true when objects are the same. So basically I will remove one assert equals, and now assert equals manga1 and manga2. So it's going to make sure that we have the same object. If this returns false, we will get a failed test, but since we have it green, it means it worked. And the hash code, basically hash code return the same value when objects are the same. And here dot hash code dot hash code. Control Shift F10, and as you can see, it's also working. So going back to the record class, we already know that basically it's like a class, immutable, but there are some restrictions. For example, you cannot create regular attributes, non-static attributes. So if you try to create here a producer, you will get compilation error, but you can have static attributes. It's the same thing with initialization blocks. You cannot have regular initialization blocks, but you can have static initialization blocks. And you can also have generics applied to your record. And one of the interesting things is the constructor. So basically, if you try to generate a constructor, you will see these two options. We have the canonical, that's basically the same thing. That's why we have that second option. So if you have the canonical, it's almost the same thing as you have here in the declaration of this record. So in this case, we can use the compact, and now this is going to behave as the constructor. So for example, let's say that we would like to validate if the name is not null. So we can add here objects require no null name. And when we do this, now if we go back to our tests, we can check constructor throw null pointer exception when name is null. So basically, if I try to create an object with name null, I will get that exception. So let's make sure that we are getting that exception by assert throws. So what's the exception I'm waiting? I'm waiting to get null pointer exception. And when I try to create a new record manga that has null as name and any number of episodes. Control Shift F10, and as you can see, if this succeeds, it means that we did get the exception. And another one, it's to make sure that nobody changed your record to a regular class. So there is a method inside the class, not the manga class, but inside the class from java.lang class, that returns true if the class is a record. So is record return true when called from manga. Basically, assert true that manga.class is a record. So why is this important? Because records are immutable, and if someone changes and they change that immutability, there is a chance that whoever wrote the record class was expecting it to behave as immutable object, especially if you're working with concurrency. That might bring you some problems that are very difficult to figure it out. So this is just an introduction for the record class. There are a little bit more that we could talk about, but you already know how most of everything works. For example, you could have a record class inside another object, like a nested record class. You could create here, for example, private record. In this case, let me copy this manga here. So we could do something like this: private record manga. And it's possible you can have nested, you can have inner, and basically just have to check because the documentation, because you already know how everything like that works. So there are some restrictions, but in general, this shows that the Java is constantly updating itself. People are working hard to keep the language with the most recent technologies. We know that we have different languages that are created, that was technically created recently. By recent, I mean maybe 10 years ago. That's what we consider recent. But Java is still kicking. So don't worry. If someone asks you or tells you that Java is dying, just show them these kind of new features that are being introduced every 6 months. So I hope you enjoyed. Let's continue with more topics in the next video. Bye bye.